This is Shades of Content, a podcast created for and featuring women of color who create and distribute content as a means to tell stories to the masses. I'm your host, Patrice Camo, owner of Camp Space, and I'm passionate about giving diverse women creators a space to be awesome. Let's go. Hey guys, welcome back to another Shades of Content episode. I'm always really happy and thankful to have you all tuned in. It's been a really busy 2 weeks with the release of Black Girls Holiday, which you guys will hear about a little later. But, I'm a little tired. I'm keeping it real, but I'm really blessed and excited that I am here and able to record another episode because remember, we are keeping with the mindset of just getting it done anyway. Always thankful to be able to talk to another bomb creator who you guys will meet in a second. Actually, right now. So today's guest is Radiance W. Harris, ES Esquire. She's an award-winning trademark attorney, best-selling author, and speaker. Radiance is the founder and managing attorney of Radiance IP Law, where she helps small and emerging businesses protect, monetize, and leverage profitable brands with trademarks. Radiance has successfully represented everything from your startups to multinational corporations across diverse industries. And she's really a wealth of knowledge. I came across Radiance on Instagram, which is how I find many of the podcast guests. And of course, she's giving amazing information. She's relatable, she's accessible, but her content is also really engaging. Like when you go to her page, it just makes you want to see what she's talking about. So I thought she would be a really good person to talk to. And let's be clear, if you've been anywhere near Instagram or Black Twitter in the last week, you've probably seen some recent trademark things kind of go down. And so we're not here to talk about those things particularly, but I do think it's good to be having this conversation because, people are talking about it and it's important and we should always be having this conversation. So, hey, Radiance.
Hi, Patrice. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to you. So yeah, let's get into it. Tell us where you're from, where you went to school, and, how'd you decide to open your own law firm?
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in Maryland, originally from Montgomery County, Maryland. And I went to Swarthmore College for undergrad, where I played basketball and I double majored in English and religion. And then I went straight out of undergrad to University of Maryland School of Law. And then right out of law school, took the bar and all that crap, and then started my career at a big law firm. And so that's where I started my legal career at a major global law firm, doing trademark work. And then about 5 or 6 years of doing that, I decided just on a whim to start my firm.
And I mean, what has that been, was it an easy process? When did you start the firm?
So we just celebrated 5 years this past November. So it's been 5 years since we've been in business.
Congratulations. Was IP law always something you were passionate about?
It's been what I've been passionate about since the beginning of my career, for sure, because that's all I've done. That's all I know is trademarks and copyrights and licensing. That's what I've lived and breathed for the past decade or so. Before then, I didn't really know what it was until I actually was able to do a little bit of work and realize what it was. But yeah, for the most part, that's what I've been passionate about. And that's what I continue to be passionate about.
Did you kind of stumble into it? Or?
I mean, kind of, sort of. So I knew I wanted to be an attorney when I was 15 years old. I didn't know what type of attorney I wanted to be. I just knew I wanted to be an attorney. And usually, usually at that age, it's ooh, I want to be an entertainment lawyer because that sounds cool. It looks cool. So in my mind, I thought, right, you don't really know what an entertainment lawyer is or what they do. It just sounds cool. It sounds like you'll be around celebrities. So that's kind of what I thought I was going to be doing. But essentially it just meant you're an attorney who does transactional work. So when I was in law school, I had these summer associate positions at different law firms, and I was able to dibble and dabble in different areas. So I did everything from family law, bankruptcy, real estate, corporate, trademarks, everything. Everything else was a snoozer. I was bored to tears. And I was okay, I like this trademark thing.
Yeah.
it's in line with like everything that I enjoy in terms of like language, and because I was an English major, so words and interpretation and all of that stuff. Content, I loved it. So that's kind of how I fell into trademark.
Got it. Okay, so it all makes sense. Okay, so number one, I went to Maryland for undergrad, so shout out to Maryland. So my business is Camp Space, and one of the things we just released was a calendar, right, which I have right here, Black Girl Holidays calendar. So it's a calendar filled with Black women holidays, right? So Camp Space has a trademark. But when I did Black Girl Holiday, my attorney, and just so everyone knows, Radiance and I do not have a professional relationship. I just love what she does. I work with another Black attorney for my own business stuff, but just so y'all know, not that it matters. But for Black Girl Holidays, my attorney suggested that in addition to the trademark, we also copyright the information. And I was like, what? So can you tell us the difference between the two?
Sure. So when you hear the term trademark and copyright, those are terms, along with patents. You might hear patents, you might hear trade secrets. Those are other areas of intellectual property. So when you hear the term intellectual property or IP law, it's referring to basically that umbrella term of trademarks, copyrights, patents, and trade secrets. So the difference between trademarks and copyright is essentially trademarks protect your brand. So it protects your business name, your product and service names, your logos, your taglines, your podcast name, your event name, your blog name, anything that is meant to use as a source identifier for your products and services. And what I mean by that is that when your prospective clients, customers, listeners see that name, see that logo, you want them to automatically think of you and your products and services and your content and not your competitors. So that's the function of a trademark. It protects elements of your brand.
Okay.
Copyright, however, protects the content that you create. So the books that you write, the videos that you take, articles, anything and any kind of content that you create, the podcast recordings, all of that is content that is subject to copyright protection.
Wow. Okay. So that very easily leads into the next question, because like a lot of our listeners are creators who have those types of things, right? Your podcast, your blog posts, the type of creative IP that you just kind of put out into the world.
Right.
And you're not thinking about copywriting it. Number one, because you're doing it so frequently. How is someone protecting that? Like I have a blog. Let's say I have a blog. Am I copywriting the entire blog? Like, what does that process?
So it kind of depends, but generally speaking, the way copyright works, unlike trademarks, is that with copyright, the copyright sticks with the content creator upon creation. Okay. So just by virtue of creating the content, assuming you're the one who's creating it and not like a ghostwriter or a third party, if you're the creator, copyright protection sticks at that time. However, from an enforcement standpoint, if someone were to steal any of your content or anything like that, you would need a U.S. copyright registration to enforce those rights. Gotcha. And so a lot of times I always recommend that if it's something of value that you're creating and sharing and being widely distributed and could be easily taken parts of it, whether it's a course or books or whatever, it would be, very beneficial to you to take that step and get it registered like within a few months of you creating the content. And a lot of times you think like, oh, do I have to copyright each individual things? You can copyright collections. So if you have like let's say a blog series, an entire series, let's say it's for a year of the content, you can copyright all of that content together. Or if you have a magazine, you can copyright the entire series. It just kind of depends on what it is, but there are ways where you're not having to necessarily copyright each individual thing. Like if you have photographs, for example, and it's a collection of photographs, you can protect them in that way. So it kind of just depends. It's like a case-by-case thing as to how you can actually protect them or whether it would fall under the same thing. The only thing that is a must is that it's like in its final form. Because when you copyright it, it's got to be in its final form, and that's the form that's protected. If you've got different variations and versions and it's something that's always being changed, then maybe you can't necessarily pursue a copyright registration for that, or doesn't make sense
Got it.
Yeah.
So this makes me think of, I don't know if you were familiar with B. Simone when she released a book, and there was like an entire graphic designer that apparently came from someone else, like verbatim.
Yeah.
So I don't know the specifics. I don't know if the original person or the claimant, I don't know, had look, I'm an attorney girl. I don't know if that person had it copyrighted, but if they did, because that person was able to use like the, social media to kind of rally behind them.
Right.
But had that person had a copyright, yes or no, would that have kind of made things a little, would it just been a simple, hey, we own this, boom, or like what?
I mean, on a baseline level, when someone is alleging infringement, they will typically send a cease and desist letter or a demand letter informing the infringer of their prior intellectual property rights, and then demanding them to stop using it, take it down, give an accounting, pay money. There are all kinds of situations that I've seen come through with a letter. So a lot of people think like, oh, I'll take my chances. Yeah, you can take your chances and see, but any of those things can happen. Of course, in order for them to truly, so if they say you got a letter and you just say kick rocks, I don't believe you. Of course,
Right.
the only way to really stop you would be to then take it to federal court. And then now you'd have a lawsuit on your hands to defend. And the thing about it is that whenever the trademark owner or the copyright owner has a US federal trademark, US federal copyright, it allows them to get special damages, statutory damages, which oftentimes are like 3 times whatever I think it's your profits or something. You just get a lot of money when you've got federally protected rights. So that's just something to keep in mind, where you have to tread lightly and make sure that any third party content that is being used, that you have licenses to use that, meaning express permission from the content owner. And then also, if you are hiring third parties to do or create anything for you, you want to make sure that they are giving representations and warranties that they have permission, or they're the original content creator, or they will assign those IP rights to you. Because a lot of people think that because they hire someone, let's say you hire a logo designer or you're hiring a web designer, that just because they hired someone and paid them money to do a service, that they automatically own the intellectual property. But that's not the case. You need something in writing that confirms that you are the owner. Otherwise, you're out here rocking a logo or whatever that's not even technically yours.
Exactly. And I'm so glad you're saying that. And I'm so happy.
Hey, thanks for listening. How awesome would it be to have a tool that help you plan out 365 days worth of Black Girl Magic focused content? Super awesome, right? Well, no worries, because we created just that. The Black Girl Holiday Content Creator Companion is a calendar and coloring book that's filled with things that can help you plan out content that engages and empowers your audience. It includes over 450 Black woman-focused holidays, events, milestones, and more than 14 never-seen-before coloring pages to help you de-stress and decompress. It also includes quarterly writing prompts, social media goal trackers, and really countless ideas for your Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, podcasts, Pinterest, any type of content. You can figure it out using this planner. It's a must-have. So visit blackgirlholidays.com to get your copy today. A link is also in our show notes, of course. www.blackgirlholidays.com, because every day is a Black girl holiday.
I have to work with attorneys, because
yes,
Black Girl Holiday, as I was talking through it with my attorney, she was like, well, wait a minute. Have you had your contractors, the people that help you put the info together, and the designer,
right,
had them sign? Or so then I had to tell her exactly what that relationship was. And she sent, I forget what the document was. She sent letters to all the contributors, and they had to sign it, basically saying that it was my property and they wouldn't have any right to.
Exactly.
So I feel like we're being very reactive. So let's be proactive here. What do you do if you have an idea and you want to make sure nobody else has already done it or nobody else owns it?
Well, the first thing is that when you do come up with an idea, the first thing people want to do is then share that idea with others. Don't do that, because the thing about ideas is that there's no protection in just ideas alone. What you get protection in the ideas is when the execution of those ideas, whether it's the creation of a business name or the creation of content, and then it's protected. that's when you're good. So to determine, okay, hey, I want to use this business name I'm thinking of, or the name of my podcast or my blog name, you want to do a search, a trademark search. And so a trademark search is essentially looking at the US Patent and Trademark Office records, looking at business records, looking on social media, Amazon, Google searches, anywhere and everywhere to see if there's someone already using even if it's a podcast, you want to look in the podcast store, see how many other people have this podcast name. So these are some things where you want to do your due diligence before adopting any name to make sure that it's available. And then once you do confirm that it's available, it's actually best to pursue the trademark process at that time, because otherwise you could potentially lose out. So if you realize, okay, this is available, I'm in the clear, you might just be in the clear for that little bit of time. You might not be in the clear a year from now because someone else might adopt it. So it's important to kind of take action once you confirm it is available. And then in terms of like copyright, it's kind of hard if you'll say if you're writing a book just from the top of the dome or something, you just do that, just write it from the top of the dome. However, if you're doing research and using different images and third parties content, then that's when you have to research and verify, get the licenses that you need to incorporate that. But there's no like copyright search per se. You can look and see if someone owns a copyright registration, but you can't actually see the contents of that registration without going to the Library of Congress. So
okay.
Yeah. So it's kind of hard to know that. If you're doing anything inspired by someone else's content, that could possibly be problematic. So that's why it's always best to create your own original content to avoid potentially stepping on other content creators' stuff. And if you are in that space where you might be stepping on someone's toes, to get that permission before using that content.
Right. And in this case, asking for forgiveness is not better than asking for permission. Like,
right.
In this case.
Exactly.
Do you feel like social media has made the IP industry more difficult to navigate?
No, not necessarily. What I will say is that with social media and just digital media in general, like more, even during this time, more and more people are online. Like online is, if they weren't online before, they're definitely online now. So what I will say is that there's definitely now more increased instances of intellectual property theft and misuse, because everyone's online, everyone's creating content. And it's getting in different people's hands and eyeballs and all of that. So, you know what I mean? So if anything, it's just been made it more competitive, if you will, and has increased the importance of protecting your IP because of how easily it can get in someone else's hands and be stolen or misused in a way that it wasn't intended. And, that's the main thing, is that there are more increased instances of theft, because of the fact that we are on social media, we are on the internet, and a lot of people aren't as educated about the fact that, oh, I can't just find a random Google photo and upload it to my Instagram drive. No, you can't, because someone has IP rights in that photograph. So that's what I would say in terms of, it's not necessarily making it harder for us as attorneys to navigate, I would say, but I guess I would say maybe the lay person, the content creator, makes them difficult to be able to have that free will to create maybe as freely as they would like.
So, I mentioned earlier in the episode how much I actually enjoy your content. And so
thank you.
I'm wondering kind of like, what has that process been for you to go from being an attorney that has a very set skill set to, coming into this more creative space and, creating content?
I think it's just, I will definitely say that content creation isn't necessarily my strong suit. I'm very more of a technical, it is what it is kind of person. So for me, what I enjoy about it is the challenge of making an area of law that, might seem intimidating or difficult to understand, and really simplify it. And so that's what I love doing. And my book is really almost like Trademarks Made Simple is in my, the way I wrote my book. The way I try to create content is I want anyone to be able to understand not only what it is and why it's important and why you need to protect it and when you need to protect it. So I guess that's the part that I enjoy, is being able to educate and help someone, regardless of whether they decide to work with me or not, is not so much the thing. It's about having that education, because when I used to work at Big Law, and I was representing those Fortune 200 brands, I was always sending cease and desist letters and initiating lawsuits against entrepreneurs and small business owners because they were constantly violating other people's intellectual property rights. And so I made it my mission really to make sure that people have that knowledge to know what they need to do, what they can't do in terms of creating their content, starting their businesses, and things of that nature.
What's the one thing that you would suggest all content creators do like right now as it pertains to their intellectual property? And I know that can mean it can be those 4 parts, but I do feel like it can be intimidating, and it's thankful for people like you. And I hope you do share a little bit more about your book, but it's like, what's the first step, you know?
The first step is basically to do an audit, take inventory of all the stuff that you've created and all of the content you've created and the names you've come up with. Just do an audit. It's basically a brain dump or a file dump or a content dump of everything that you've done. And actually in my book, Trademark Like a Boss, I include in the back an intellectual property audit worksheet that you can go through and kind of identify those things. And so once you kind of know what you have, then you can start to identify, okay, what's really valuable here? Like, what do I need to protect? What do I need to be monetizing? Like, you could be sitting on like a landmine or a gold mine, not a landmine, a gold mine of content that you could be monetizing. You could be licensing. You could be creating a course from that. I mean, essentially, that's what I did with my book. Over a decade of trademark experience that I had, that I was like, let me put it in this book. People are always asking me questions about what it is and how to do it and how do I get protection. Let me write this book that walks people step by step through the process. And so that's the thing. And so basically, the first thing I would do is say, take an inventory of what you do, what you have, what you've created, and then identify, okay, what do I need to protect? And if you can't figure that out yourself, you're kind of stumbled, speak to an IP attorney like myself, schedule a consultation to kind of walk through and come up with a legal action plan for you. And then you can determine, okay, maybe I can start making some money off of this if I haven't already, or what are some ways that I can repurpose this content I've already created?
That's smart. Like, I never thought about just like making that list and starting there, because we do have so many things. So you got to kind of have it all in front of you.
Yes, all in front of you. Mm-hmm.
What do you have coming up next, Radiance? Like, what can we look out for? What do you want our listeners to be checking for? And how can they find you?
Sure. Yeah. So what do I have coming up next? Well, basically, I'm just doing a whole bunch of trademark stuff. So in terms of next, I'm continuously always looking for opportunities to speak and promote my book and also educate the masses about trademarks. So if you're interested in learning more about those opportunities, you can definitely join my mailing list at radianceiplaw.com. There's actually a free trademark search guide that I have on the website that you can opt into, and you'll get that free guide. And then you'll also be on my mailing list to keep on track as to what's going on with me and what kind of information or workshops I might be doing in the future. On Instagram, you can follow me at Radiance Harris ESQ. Also, connect with me on LinkedIn. I always love to connect with people there. And if you're interested in my book, Trademark Like a Boss, the ultimate step-by-step guide to protecting your brand, it is available on my website as well as on Amazon.
Awesome. So I'm going to make sure that everything is linked in the show notes so people can literally just scroll and click and buy and get all the info that they need. Definitely join Radiance's email list. This has been a shorter episode. I'm not going to lie, right? Because we're out here momming. But it's like, these are important conversations that need to be had. And you were able to give like so much really important information. Like, everybody should be able to listen to this and then take the next steps to make sure that their intellectual property is protected. So
yes, I hope
Radiance,
so.
I really do appreciate you being so open and forthcoming with all of your knowledge. Guys, please, like I said, click on all the links in the bio or in the show notes so that you can learn about Radiance and join her mailing list, purchase her book, have a consultation if you have more questions, and then just share the information with somebody else so that we can constantly be learning and elevating. It has been a pleasure, Radiance.
Thank you.
I'll touch base offline. Thank you so much.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Bye.
Shades of Content is brought to you by and recorded at Camp Space, a content creator studio for women of color. To learn more, visit www.campworkspace.com.